Well, hello there, my dear traveller. And what brings you to this fair station at this hour? Oh, I see. What unfortunate luck you have been cursed with. Never mind. I'm sure you will benefit from the walking, as you already have done. I beg your pardon? For what purpose am I here? Oh, I am to bear witness to the arrival and departure of a special train which is due to pass through here soon. What train is that? Dare I tell you? Oh, what am I saying? Of course I do. Come, traveller, sit closer to the fire, and I shall tell you the story I call The Graveyard Shift. Thanks to the books written by the Finn clergyman, many are familiar with the variety of trains that run along the railways of Sodor, from Gordon's Wild Nor'Wester, Percy's Post Train, Peter Sam's Refreshment Special, and the Flying Kipper. But there is one particular train that not many railwaymen will talk about, and that is what is known as the Graveyard Shift. Every night, after regular services on the various railways and lines have come to an end, Edward leaves Tidmouth Sheds in order to pull a long consist consisting of 12 single-axle bogie coaches, similar to the ones first pulled by the engines of the Sodor and Mainland, Wellsworth and Sudbury, and Tidmouth, Knapford and Elsbridge light railways, before they were all amalgamated into the North Western Railway in 1914. For as long as anyone can remember, Edward has been the only one to pull the Graveyard Shift. Many an engine such as Boco or the Caledonian Twins, even Gordon and James, have offered to pull it in his stead, so that he may take the chance to have a night off, but Edward always politely yet firmly declined, stating it was best that he did it and nobody else. However, one night in December, Edward was taken ill. He'd been feeling a slight twinge in his side rods and valve gear all day, but it had all come to a head after pulling his last local of the day. As James pulled in, he found Edward being examined by an inspector from the works.
Can't you do anything for him? The graveyard shift starts soon.
I'm sorry, but there's just nothing I can do at present. Your choice is either to come back to Groven's Gate or sit here. And I don't think the Fat Control is going to approve of the second option.
But what about the train? It has to be pulled. It just has to.
Listen, boy. You heard what he said.
Look, I pulled a train when I was damaged before. I can easily do it again.
Edward, no disrespect, but if you try to pull this train, you could do yourself even more damage. Do you really want to spend the rest of your days amongst the statics at a museum?
She's right, old boy. You try to pull this train, I might as well just go to the Fat Controller right now and hand him my notice, because I'm damned if I'll be made to drive another engine.
But who will replace me? There's no one else available. They're all on other jobs.
I'll do it.
What? You, James? Are you sure?
Of course I am. Look, Edward, I'll level with you. I owe you. Like, seriously owe you. And I know that. Sometimes I can be something of a prat.
That's an understatement.
Give over, Emily. At least I'm trying. Anyway, as one of the many favours to you, I'll pull the Graveyard Shift in your place. Sound like a plan?
Oh, if you're really sure.
Edward, I just did a massive speech about redemption and great responsibility. How much more convincing do you need?
Very well then, James. You may take the Graveyard Shift, but I must warn you that...
Hey, what's going on here? Are you serious? Haven't you fixed him already? His train's nearly due. The coaches are waiting at Tidmouth already.
I'm afraid my repairs appear to be more extensive than I first thought, sir. Therefore, I shall not be pulling the train.
Great, that means I have to inform Controller that the service will be cancelled. Oh, I am not going to enjoy my meeting with the Fat Controller tomorrow.
Beg your pardon, sir, but the train will not need cancelling. James will be taking the train as my proxy.
I don't know. Let me check with the Fat Controller about this. If he gives you the green light, then I'll go with it. Hello? Get me Knapford 2468, please. Just hope he hasn't gone to bed yet. Oh, hello? Good evening, this is the yard manager at Tidmouth Sheds. I'd like to speak to Sir Charles. I appreciate that, but this is an emergency. Look, never mind the details, just get him on the phone. I know it's almost the middle of the night. I do have a watch, you stupid great... Hello? Oh, good evening, sir. Oh, what was that I was saying? Oh, I just realised that my watch had stopped. Silly thing, anyway. The reason why I'm calling so late, sir, is that Edward's repairs are taking longer than expected and he won't be able to pull the graveyard shift, but he has found a stand-in. Who? James, sir. No, he seems to be doing it quite on his own, sir. You approve, sir? Alright, I'll tell him. Good night, sir. Well, he's agreed. Off you go, James. You've only got a few minutes before departure.
Yes, sir.
Oh, James, before you go, there's a few rules I think you need to know before you pull this train.
Like what?
1. Stick to the route given to you. Do not deviate from it at all, no matter what. 2. Stop at the designated stations and the designated stations only. Nowhere else, no matter what. And finally, you may talk to the passengers, but do not, under any circumstance, ask them where they're going. Do you understand, James?
Edward, I have pulled passenger trains before.
Yes, James, I'm aware of that, but you haven't pulled this one before. It's imperative that you stick to the rules I've just given you. Promise me, James. Promise me that you'll stick to those rules.
Alright, I'll stick to them, sheesh.
Oh, thank you, James. You have no idea what a comfort that is to me.
James, get a move on. If the Fat Controller finds out the graveyard was even a second late departing, he's not gonna be a happy chappy. And who will he blame? Well, obviously he'll blame you at some point, but he'll more than likely yell at me first, and if he yells at me, then I'll obviously yell at you.
Yes, sir. Right away, sir.
James steamed out of the shed and made his way towards the station where the graveyard stood waiting for him. James was no stranger to the antique coaches, but as he puffed alongside, he felt there was something odd about them, but he wasn't sure what it was. As he backed down onto the train, he cast an eye along the platform and noticed there was something interesting about the passengers, and that was they all seemed to be wearing fancy dress. Amongst the many people on the platform, he could see a distinguished-looking gentleman in clothing of the late 1800s. There was also a woman dressed in a 1930s evening dress, and an old man James recognised as a local living in Tidmouth.
Interesting attire. Looks like they're going to a fancy dress party. Which is interesting, because if there was a party, I most certainly would have been invited. Me being such a popular, stylish, and splendid red engine.
As if, James. Oh, there's the whistle. Let's go.
With a hiss and a snort, James set off on his journey. As he made his way along the route, he kept encountering more and more strange people at every station. At Lower Tidmouth, there was a man dressed as a knight, another dressed in the uniform of a Luftwaffe pilot, and a blonde dressed in some form of boiler suit. At Knapford, there was a young man dressed in the uniform of a private in the 1st Sardinian Fusiliers from the Napoleonic era, alongside a middle-aged gent in the uniform of a captain of the Royal Ordnance Corps, who was conversing with an old woman.
Blimey, this must be one heck of a party. I mean, look at these costumes. They look so authentic.
They certainly do. Although I will say, it's rather a bit late for a fancy dress party.
James continued on down the main line, picking up numerous passenger after passenger, each one dressed in a different sort of costume. He saw a vicar, a nurse, and even what looked to be a small child, although James tried to convince himself that he must be mistaken, and the small child was, in fact, a dwarf, as there was no possible way any responsible parent would take a small child out to a party at this time of night.
I wonder who's even throwing this party. Sir Robert? Lord Callan? I'd say the Duke and Duchess of Boxford, but the hour's a little bit late for them to throw a party. Have you any ideas, Phil?
Haven't a clue, James. All the route map says is we'll know we've reached our destination when we come to a set of buffers.
Well, that's oddly vague yet specific. There are hundreds of buffers on Sodor. How will I know which set to look for?
Well, according to the map, we'll switch onto a branch line just after Marin, and we're to keep going until we see the buffers.
James carried on his way. As he crested Gordon's Hill, he found himself plunging into a dense fog, which completely blinded him and his crew.
What the? I thought the weather forecast said it was going to be clear all night.
So did I, James. We'd best slow down, otherwise we might miss the points we need to get onto this branch line.
James slowly trundled through Marin, only stopping to pick up a few more fanciful individuals. As the last coach cleared the platform, James suddenly felt himself lurch to the right as he went over a set of points.
Hang on a tick. There's no immediate right turn at Marin when heading east. The points for the viaduct are at least another 2 miles from the platform. Maybe we should stop and go back, Phil.
I don't know, James. I get the feeling we shouldn't go back just yet.
Oh, come on. I know Edward was intense about the rules, but we surely have to be going the wrong way. We just have the...
James trailed off as he saw a small red light shining in front of him. Slowing down even more, he saw it was a red lamp sitting atop a set of buffers.
Well, a set of buffers after a set of points. Looks like I've arrived at my destination. Only, where exactly is it?
James trailed off again as the fog to his left suddenly parted like a pair of curtains, revealing an eerie Gothic church. As James and his crew stared at the church, the doors to the garages suddenly opened and the bell atop the church tower began to toll. James watched as the passengers disembarked and filed down to the church in a single crocodile line. The closer they got to the church, the more the figures seemed to James like zombies as opposed to a bunch of happy partygoers. And then it hit James. The reason why he felt there was something unusual about the old coaches, it was the fact they felt less like coaches and more like coffins on wheels. James and his crew watched as the last of the passengers filed into the church and the large double doors slammed shut, silencing the bell and seemingly drawing in the fog again. James took this as a signal that he should now make a departure and slowly backed out of the siding. He returned to the sheds and was hardly surprised to see Edward waiting for him, a solemn look on his face. James backed down and, for a while, neither engine said anything until Edward cleared his throat.
I am so sorry you had to witness tonight's events, James. Perhaps now you'll understand why I hesitate to allow anyone else to pull that train.
I do. It's because the graveyard is...
A vessel for the departed, yes. Anyone who was born, lived, and or died on Sodor boards that train and is carried to their final resting place, where they may pass on to their next life in peace. I was the very first to pull it, and it had such an impact on me. I vowed, as long as I had steam in my cylinders, I would be the only one to pull that train, in order to prevent anyone else from suffering the traumatic experience.
Edward, I honestly had no idea. Is that why you were so insistent on following all those rules?
Yes, James. I found those rules help with the journey. Those passengers are not the only thing that would like to board that train. James, I'll understand if you don't want to pull that train anymore. With any luck, my repairs will be done in time and I'll be able to do it again.
No, Edward. It's alright, really. I'll keep doing it. Might as well, now I know the true story.
When the sun rose, Edward was taken away to the works. Whilst his repairs were ongoing, James continued to pull the graveyard. It took him a while to adjust to operating on less sleep than usual, but he felt that he owed it, not just to Edward, but those who would seek to travel upon the graveyard. Eventually, Edward returned to full service, but the pair decided to split the shifts between them, each one taking 3 nights a week and alternating Sundays. James eventually gave up looking for the set of points that he went down. His crew scoured all maps they could find, but found no trace of them. They even asked the signalman at Marin, but he was just as confused as they were. Wherever the church is, and wherever it goes, Edward and James just prayed that the passengers that disembarked at the church halt now live on in peace. Well, traveller, another exceptional story, would you not agree? Oh, do excuse me. Here is that special I said I was to await, and what ho! Here cometh the souls that doth wish to travel upon her. Make way, my good traveller, impede them not, their time is short. Good lady, do allow me to assist you with your boarding. Sir, I say, sir, do mind your umbrella, you nearly had that young child's eye out. Now, my dear, weep not. This is a most happy occasion, for I believe your dearest aunt is waiting for you at the journey's end. Ah, all aboard. Splendid. Right away, good noble driver. Travel safe upon your journey. And as for you, my traveller, I would also make tracks, as so I plan, for the clock doth toll the hour, and summons me back to my work. Au revoir, and lead to say, mine traveller, and as the graveyard does, ensure you stay to your path. You never know what may be lurking.